A little bit different today. I realized this week that we're hitting June. Okay, a lot of big things happen in June. We got people graduating. Anybody? Shout out to who? Next year. All right. Shout out to Adeli. Shout out to Jose. Anybody else graduate?
Oh, this girl.
You graduated. Jessica's graduating. A little applause for our graduates. All right. So a little shout out to you guys. So a lot of cool things happen in June, and June is right around the halfway point of the year, right? It's month 6. There's 12 months in a year, so we're right at the halfway point. And I remember at the beginning of this year, or right before we started this year, the very last Friday night of 2013, I asked the question. I had you guys fill something out, and the question was, what do you want God to do in your life in the year 2014? You guys, was anybody here? We were in the choir room. We filled out those papers. I still have them. All right, I still have them, and I reviewed them again this week. And I'm like, Lord, I pray that some of those things have been happening. So because we're halfway through, I want to do something a little bit different today. I want to give you guys another form. How many of us have been having finals this week? All right, this is not a final, okay? So don't get scared. I'm going to have Denise and Joanna help me out. So there's 2 sides. I want you guys to look at the side with the 2 questions. What changes have you seen in my life? Here you go. You guys get 1 to each person, please. And pens to each person. We need the pens back, all right? So, not a quiz. No, we're not grading these. Don't feel bad. Look at you guys are getting these. Feel free to put your name, but it is not mandatory, okay? There's a spot on the bottom for your name if you would like. The reason why I have the option for the name is the first question is, what changes have you seen in your life this year? Okay? So what has God been doing in your life? We've been talking a lot about transformation. We've been talking a lot about change and what do you want. Last week, Erica gave a great message. So we've been talking a lot about some pretty cool stuff, right? Right?
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. So I want to get a little bit of feedback on the top section. What changes have you seen in your life this year? Okay? And on the bottom, what changes do you still want to see in your life? At the end of this year, when we hit December 2014, what do you hope that God has done in your life by then? Okay? And if you put your name at the bottom, I will be praying specifically for that bottom section throughout the remainder of this year. So that's why I have an option for the name. So I'm going to give you guys about 4 minutes to fill that out, and then I'll be back in a bit. Does that make sense? All right. All right. So you're going to keep them for now. Go ahead and keep them. If there's still stuff you want to write, keep writing as I'm talking. I'm just going to introduce the next thing. So like I was saying, it's crazy how it's already been 6 months. It's already, for some of you guys don't even remember the whole Y2K thing. We're not even going to get to the year 2000. Now we're in 2014. It's time goes by fast. So I pray that God that you've been seeing God do some stuff in your life. Not everybody in this room was with us back in December. Okay, so I pray that in the time that you've been with us, you've seen some pretty cool stuff, and I pray that the stuff that you still want to see happen, that God does that by the end of this year. Amen? All right, so keep writing if you need to. I'm going to introduce the next thing that I want to do. I'm going to give you guys about 10 minutes for this one. I want to divide up into 4 groups. So we're gonna divide up into 4 groups, and this is what we're gonna be doing, okay? Each group is gonna be writing down any questions that they have about Christianity, okay? And I'm doing this for a purpose. First of all, I want to see kind of what type of questions we have, and I'm doing this so that throughout the remainder of this year, especially December, I want to see how I could incorporate answers to these questions into my preachings. Does that make sense? Okay, but the way we're gonna divide up the 4 groups is this way. Are you guys all paying attention? You guys have your thinking caps on? Haven't said that in a long time. All right, group A is going to be males. How many males do we have in this room? Okay, group A is males that are in high school or below, or they just graduated. So if you just graduated, we're still going to put you in that category. Males that are in high school or just graduated or below high school age, okay? So you're group A. And group B is going to be the female version of that, okay? So females that are in high school, just graduated, or are below high school age. Does that make sense? So we're going to have group A, we're going to have group B, and then group C, okay, is going to be males older than that. So every other male, it's males above high school age. And then group D is going to be females above high school age. Does that make sense? Okay, so before you guys, I'm going to have you guys spread out. We're not going to move these chairs around because we're going to come back in a bit. I'm gonna have you guys spread out. Find your 4 different corners. You guys could go over there for now. It's all right. We're gonna move around. And actually, Erica, if you want to turn on. No, we have enough light. So I'm going to give this to you. You're going to write down any questions that you have about Christianity. In other words, what would be a good preaching topic for you to listen to? The reason I'm dividing you guys up into different age groups is I want to know what type of different questions the different age groups has. How many of us are here are 22, 25, older, 18, below 18? Okay, look. I had a certain type of questions when I was in high school. When I hit college, my questions were completely different. And now that I'm done with college, I have my big boy job, as Jessica calls it. I have my office boy job. You know, I have different types of questions. So does that make sense? Yeah. You know, so the reason I'm putting it into groups is because I want you guys to talk amongst yourselves and you guys figure out what type of questions your age group and your gender has. And then we're going to write those down. So, all right. So, wake the person up that's next to you. Ask him you're awake. Ask him you ready. Say, David's not going to preach for an hour. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're jumping straight to the conclusion. This is the conclusion of which will take about 30 minutes. Yeah. This is the conclusion of what we just did. So, thank you guys so much for participating in that, for writing your questions down, for being open in your groups. I hopefully it was good. Hopefully it was a little bit fun. So I'm glad I have a chance to look at these, and I'm gonna go through them. I'm gonna look at all these questions that group A through D were asking. And I do really want to include them in my upcoming preachings. I have a series already planned coming up probably next week. But I want to find a way to include your questions into my preachings. But this is something that I feel like the Lord keeps in my mind. Okay? The answer to your question, the questions that you ask, the answers to these questions will have absolutely no impact, will mean absolutely nothing. Even if I answer each and every one of these questions that you have perfectly, if you get the perfect answer, it will mean absolutely nothing if you don't retain it, if you don't apply it, if you don't do it, if you don't persevere through it. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Like, and this is something that has been that God keeps on my mind, because if we go hearing preaching after preaching after preaching after preaching, like we've done 6 months of preaching already, almost. We've done five complete months of preaching. Today's the last Friday of this month. So that's a ton of preachings after preaching. We threw a comedy night in there. We threw a couple other things, but so many preachings. Yet if we don't apply it, if we don't persevere with that truth, it will do absolutely nothing. And I'm not only saying this to you, I'm saying this to me too. And first of all, let me say, I know for a fact that a lot of people in this room have been applying what we're teaching. All right, don't miss it. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that you guys haven't been doing anything. Like I know Giovanni, almost every time I drop him off at home, he tells me this cool story of what he's been doing. You know, he prayed for somebody not too long ago at school who was being bullied, right? Or you talk with them, and this last week he told me, you know, that he led somebody to the Lord, they accepted Christ. So give him an applause, give the Lord an applause, right? So I know, I get these random texts from Andrea, I get random texts from other people, and people call me also with needs and prayer requests. I love the fact that you guys are calling each other, Facebooking each other, and saying, you know, pray for me or help me out with this, because I know that we're applying, right? Okay, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying and say we haven't applied anything, because I have seen change in our lives. But the Lord still keeps this in my mind. We got to be cautious not to go through preaching after preaching after preaching after preaching and not apply what we learn. Even at times we could come to the front and have like a God moment, yet when we go home, we choose not to do it, or we choose not to reinforce what we've learned. And I'm not saying this only to you, I'm saying this to me. How many times have I preached, live by faith, not by sight? You guys have heard me say that before, right? You guys have heard me say we need to become love, right? So and I say this to you, because if for me, the dude who's preaching, right, the guy who studies it, who preaches it, if I constantly need to remind myself, if I need to be intentional about living out what I'm preaching, not just what I'm hearing, but what I'm preaching, I could imagine it would be equal or more so for those who come and hear the word. You got to be intentional and remind yourself, it's like, all right, I heard this and this and this and this and this, so I got to do this and this and this. Are you guys hearing what I'm saying? All right? We've been through some really, really good messages this year. And I'm not saying just because I'm preaching. I'm saying this because I believe the Lord has been speaking. Last week's, how many of us were here last week? Raise your hands up high. Last week's was awesome. And it was called, What Do You Want? You guys remember that? What do you want? The video telling a girl, what do you want? What do you want, right? So what do you want? The one right before that was called Saying No to God. What we were looking at right there it's easy to say yes to God to some things. But we need to say yes to God in the things that are even difficult to say yes to. It is so easy to say no to God sometimes. And at times by not saying yes, we are therefore saying no. You guys remember that one, right? Oh, my sister. Okay. The one right before that, the one, are you willing? I know there was some few jokes going around it, but it stuck. The whole question, are you willing? Are you willing? Are you willing? You guys remember that message? Are you willing to pray for the sick person? Are you willing to do this? The one right before that was about faith requires action. It is not enough just to hear it. You got to do it. We're talking about that a little bit right now. The one right before that was called the kingdom first mindset. When life brings you boo-boo, when life brings you some hard times, when life is hard, how do you respond? When life is good, how do you respond? Do you respond with the kingdom mindset first? So do you guys remember that one? Anybody? So we've been hearing some pretty good messages, I would say. So not because of me, but because I'm preaching the word, and the word is good. Amen? It's been 5 months of that. At least this year. And we've had 3 years prior to this year. Look at what Jesus says to people who hear a lot of good messages, a lot of word. If you go to Luke 8, verse 1. Are you guys with me? Okay. Luke 8, verse 1. And if you want to bring me my phone just so I can keep the time. Luke 8, verse 1. It says, Jesus traveled about from one town and village to another. What was he doing when he was traveling? Proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. Okay? So Jesus did what? He went from town to town to town to town proclaiming the good news, right? So he was preaching. Right? A lot of preachings. Jump down to verse 4. So he got to this one town. And verse 4 tells us, it says, while a large crowd was gathering and people were coming to Jesus from town after town, he told them this parable. So I want you to understand the setting. How many visual people do we have in here? Like you only learn if you see it or if you do it. Okay, so I want you to, for you guys and everybody else, I want you guys to understand the visual. Jesus had been preaching and preaching and preaching, and his ministry was 3 years, so I don't know how many months this was, but he was going from town after town. Right here, they didn't have limousines or bus, so it would take a while, right, to get from town to town. So this has been a while. From town after town after town, preaching and preaching and preaching and preaching the good news, and so much so that he started getting famous, kind of like a rock star, where people came from different cities. In other words, it says here, a large crowds were gathering. People were coming to Jesus from town after town. Okay? So that means they had been hearing about Jesus. They had been hearing about what he's saying. They've been hearing message after message after message, and they were coming. So right now, imagine Jesus. The worship team just finished. They're just playing Remolineando or He Loves Us or whatever, right? They finished, dancing with their camels. And then he's about to start preaching, right? They collected, I'm translating right now. They collected the ofrenda. They collected the offering. It's preaching time. They did their announcements and everything. All right, so Jesus, it's preaching time. These people in front of him have been hearing message after message, very similar to you guys. Very similar to us. Message after message after message. So this is the message that Jesus gives to people in our situation. Are you guys hearing what I'm saying? Yeah? All right. Let's see what he says to us, since we've been doing this for 5 months this year and heard many messages. He says this parable. A farmer went out to sow his seeds. As he was scattering the seeds, some fell along the path. It was trampled on. Along the path, it was trampled on. And the birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky soil. Somebody say rocky soil? And it came, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Verse 7. And some fell amongst the thorns, okay, which grew up. So some fell among the thorns, which grew up with it and choked the plants. Somebody say choked the plants. Okay. Verse 8. Still other seed fell on good soil. Say good soil. It came up and yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. So he gives 4 different types of crop. He gives a story of a shepherd comes, sows seed, and 3 of them didn't work. 1 of them worked, which was a good soil. When he said this, he called out, "Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear." Look at the person at right or left. Ask him, you got ears? You want to hear? Okay? You got some people have big ears, some people have little ears, some people have dirty ears, some people have hairy ears. But if you have ears, they are to hear. Okay? Verse 9. His disciples asked him, "What does this parable mean?" They asked him, "What this parable mean?" They said, "Jesus, so you all these people, they've been coming from time after time after time after time, and then you give them this weird story about a farmer and different types of seeds." And now he's going to explain it. Verse 11. This is the meaning of the parable. The seed is the word of God. Those along the path are the ones who hear it, and the devil comes and takes it away. The devil comes and takes away the word from their hearts, so they may not believe and be saved. Those on the rocky ground are those who receive the word with joy when they hear it, but have no root. Somebody say no root? Okay? They believe for a while, but in time of testing they fall away. The seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear. But as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries. Anybody ever here had something to worry about in life? This is addressing it. It's saying, the seed that falls among the thorns stands for those who hear. But as they go on their way, they are choked by life's worries, riches, and pleasures, and they do not mature. But, somebody say but? But the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. Okay, Matthew 13:23 gives the same story, and it ends this way. It says, "This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown." Okay, so I could go this could be 4 weeks of preachings. I could break each and every one down. But all I want you to do is understand what Jesus is saying. Okay? Jesus is pretty much saying, you could hear word after word after word after word, but it is only when it lands on good soil that it produces a fruit. Okay? It may start bearing fruit, but if you allow life's worries to come and choke it, then it's really done nothing. If you heard a great message in January and you were up here in the front, and again, I'm not saying this to scare people from the front, but if you were up here in the front, you felt like the Lord gave you direction. You were being obedient. It was going good. It was going good. It was going good. And then all of a sudden, life brought a thorn. Life brought a hardship. Did it choke it away, or did you persevere? This word says, but the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word. So first of all, you got to come and hear it, but it's not enough just to hear. You need to retain it. Okay? And by persevering, produce a crop. Somebody say persevere. Persevere. We've heard the message multiple times. You got to live by faith, not by sight. But when you're going through a difficult situation, when you're going through a rough financial situation, when you go through a breakup or something and all of a sudden your world is coming down, are you going to persevere with all the messages that you have heard? Or are you going to allow life's worries to choke that truth? Are you hearing what I'm saying? The other one, it was talking about the seed that lands on a rock. In other words, these are people who come, they hear it. They may come up to the front, that there's a good prayer. I mean, they get prayed for. But you don't allow the word to truly sink in and apply to multiple situations. It's not going to grow. It is not going to produce a crop unless you hear the word, retain it, and persevere. Okay? And when you persevere, it says it produces a crop. Matthew 13 says it produces a crop yielding 30, 60, or 100 times more. You guys getting the point of what I'm saying, right? Okay. Last verse that talks about it, like I said, this is the conclusion. James 1:22-25. It says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. Okay? When you walk in a mirror, you girls, how many girls use mirrors? I asked this. Okay. I'm sure you guys use mirrors. Hopefully, right? Because you guys all look good. You guys all look good. So hopefully, I think you guys used a mirror today. So, you guys walked up to the mirror, you did your lipstick, you did your makeup, you did your hair, and then you turned around. If you would forget what you looked like, you would have to go back and say, okay, I have no booger in my nose, I'm still doing good. You know, and then you would have to just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. That makes no sense. That's what this is saying. When you come on Fridays and hear the word and you leave and nothing has changed, it's as if you look at the mirror, you look at what you're supposed to become, you look at who you are, you look at what the Bible says you are, yet when you leave this place and you forget all that, the mirror didn't serve its purpose. The Bible didn't serve its purpose. You guys hearing what I'm saying? Okay? We've been doing this for 5 months. And I'm just talking about this year. We've been doing this message after message after message. These last 5-6 weeks have been really, really good messages, really powerful messages. And they may have touched you like, oh man, that was good. But did you retain it? Did you keep it in your mind? Did you keep it in your heart? Right now, are you going through something difficult? Remember the message that we said, respond kingdom first mindset, and respond that way right now. The message that we heard last week, what do you want? Have you been able to persevere through that and remind yourself this week, okay, I want a successful relationship, so I'm not going to go after the guy that doesn't respect God, the guy that doesn't love God, or the girl that doesn't respect God, the girl that doesn't respect me. Have you been able to retain it and persevere with that truth? Verse 25, but whoever looks intently into the perfect law, in other words, the Bible, whoever hears a message that gives freedom and continues in it, again, persevering, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it. So the key is what? Hearing it, not forgetting, and then what? Doing it. They will be blessed in what they do. I'm gonna have just Erica come up today. No, let me have the worship team come up. We're good. Let's have the worship team come up. You guys okay that I just preached about, what was that, 15 minutes? Yeah. You guys okay with that? Can we get an applause? All right. The real goal for today was these, okay? I'm gonna look through these questions. I'm gonna look through all this. I'm gonna pray about them. Maybe on the front where you were saying, I still want God to do this in my life. I'm gonna be praying for those, and I'm gonna be praying for you. I'm gonna look through those questions. I'm gonna want to apply them to the upcoming messages. But you guys, we gotta know that if we're not good soil, if we're not applying what we're learning, no crop is gonna happen, right? We may be like the seed that lands on the rock. It may start to grow a little bit, but as soon as you go through something difficult, something that's gonna test your faith, you just fall away. I want to invite you to stand right now. I want you to walk away with that truth. I want you to understand that we got many more messages coming. But the key is remembering it, retaining it, and persevering with that truth.